It's like a chess. First, they're positioning their pieces, using this one signal to synchronize their efforts. And then what? Checkmate.
To say that they've been riding around in flying saucers, it's crazy, Mulder. There is nothing to support that.
From now on, you will have no identifying marks of any kind. You are no longer part of the system. We are the men in black.
You know what the difference is between you and me? I make this look good.
If you lived through the 90s, then you'll understand just how popular UFOs and aliens were in a variety of hit TV shows and movies. And it was this exposure to UFO culture that inspired my guest today to report on UFO theories based on research released by governments and UFO communities. My name is Sam Breakgear, and welcome to Brains Bite Back, your podcast for all things relating to psychology, technology, and our society. My guest today is Tim Hinchliffe, our editor, a friend of mine, and top dog here at The Sociable. He is a tech journalist reporting on how technology is being used by governments and citizens around the world, while also exploring unconventional topics such as UFOs, conspiracy theories, and ancient civilizations. In this episode, Hinchcliffe explains how he first became interested in UFOs, what it is like to report on such a mysterious subject from a strong journalistic standpoint, and bizarre theories such as the grandfather complex and why it could be important for UFO technology. Additionally, we also discuss ancient civilizations and their world-famous structures. And during this part of the show, you will find out why Hinchcliffe doesn't believe the pyramids are tombs, but instead served another greater purpose for the living, what Christopher Dunn's Giza power plant theory could mean for ancient civilizations, and an interesting feature that can be experienced in Mexico's Chichen Itza.
Something you want to add to this briefing, Captain Hiller?
No, sir. I'm just a little anxious to get up there and whoop ET's ass, that's all.
If I Google you and nothing comes up, do you even exist? Well, maybe in the eyes of an existentialist like Descartes, but his digital footprint is still bigger than yours. If you're looking to maximize your business's online visibility, our sponsor Publicize can help. Publicize is a digital communication agency that has helped businesses like yours gain exposure in major online publications for the past decade, increasing your digital share of voice and boosting your SEO efforts. And for a limited time only, exclusive to Brains Bite Back listeners, you can receive an SEO assessment as part of your package for any tier of service at no extra charge with this special promotion. To find out more, visit publicize.co/BBB. Well, Tim, I am sure that anyone that's listening to this and they are a fan of The Sociable will probably know who you are. But nonetheless, I think it would be great if you could tell our listeners exactly who you are and what it is you do here at The Sociable.
Right. Well, as you said, my name is Tim. Thank you. Tim Hinchliffe. I'm the editor of The Sociable. So basically, I'm in charge of just about all of the editorial content on the publication. And my focus, I tend to focus on emerging tech, military technology, psychedelics, and big tech, regulations and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love it because like the stuff that you cover, I feel like I never usually touch upon. And so I feel that like I'm always on the peripheral of like the kind of stuff that you're talking about, but I love how passionate you are about it. And I love like the strength and knowledge that you bring to The Sociable with these ideas. And today is a perfect example of that because it's a topic that you've spoken about a few times and you published a number of articles on. And I am super interested to get into this. It's UFOs. So I'd love to know, first of all, when did you first become interested in UFOs and what started it?
Well, I was probably in 1995. I was 10 years old. And when I was a kid, I used to build plastic models. And I came across one of a UFO. And it was really big, and it was really shiny. It was really cool. And I really liked it. But this model kit, it had a whole booklet inside it from this researcher guy named Bob Lazar. But people who are in the UFO community will know who he is. He claimed to have worked at area, I believe it was S4, near Area 51. And it just blew my mind away. I didn't know that there was all this stuff about UFOs out there. And then coincidentally, like right around 1995, after I got the model, I got interested in what's the shiny thing. that's when I started getting into the X-Files, the show, because that was really popular at the time. And there were reruns on the FX channel every night. So I think I was watching X-Files at night and building the model during the day. And I think that's what kicked it all off.
Yeah. I have to say, I remember being a kid and watching X-Files occasionally, and I really did enjoy it. But I just remember being very young when I watched it. And I have to say, I think that I went through a similar sort of phase. I remember my stepfather had a book called The Unexplained, and I always used to read that, and it was huge, like a really thick hardback book. And it was absolutely full of stories like these. And I do remember on one occasion I read a story about an alien, and I got freaked out. And I can't remember how young I was, but I told my mum that I was like, I can't sleep, I'm scared. And she was like, have you been reading that Unexplained book again? And I was like, yeah. And and she was like, I told you about that. Don't take it so seriously. I mean, it's just a book.
Yeah, for me, the 90s, I was born in 1985. So just in the mid 90s, there was a really cool time for this topic, because like I said, the X-Files were going on then. And then in 1996, I believe it was, Independence Day, the movie came out. And then the following year, Men in Black came out in 97, I believe it was. So, I mean, even though science fiction is an awesome thing, and I don't think I'd be really that interested in writing about tech if science fiction hadn't existed. It provides a lot of inspiration for me, but I never really necessarily equated the two, like the UFO phenomenon thing with science fiction. Like, to me, like UFO stuff was like looking at government things, like all this secret black budget stuff, but it wasn't anything like in the realm of science fiction that I put the two together in my mind. They were kind of two separate things, but there were aliens and there were flying things, so it was all cool.
Yeah, definitely cool. So I really want to get into it with a recent article that you published on the Sociable titled Origins of UFO Technology Theories, Secret Space Programs, ETs, and Time Traveling Humans. And you stated that there are numerous theories relating to UFOs, but you believe one of the three following theories to be a most likely the most reasonable and most rational explanation. So you stated UFO technology comes from black budget secret space programs that most in government aren't privy to. UFO technology comes from extraterrestrials from the past and or present. And finally, UFO technology comes from time traveling humans from the future. Can you expand on each of these possible outcomes and explain why you believe these to be the most likely explanations?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I don't know everything about the subject, and I don't have direct insider information on any of it. So, I mean, there's plenty of other theories out there that could be plausible, but these are the ones that I've seen that they could overlap each other as well. So one thing I don't rule out the possibility of extraterrestrials. I don't rule out the possibility of time traveling humans or time traveling ETs. I don't rule out the possibility of, the secret space programs either being completely government or maybe even with influence from out there as well. It's just a way that I see that these all kind of make sense in a way. So the three are secret space programs, ETs, or time travelers. So I think the three of them can overlap. So with the secret space program stuff, there's many in the UFO community, they've been saying this for a long time, that, government cover-ups, but also stuff that most people in the government aren't privy to. So like that's compartmentalization. It's compartmentalized. So like, I think even, researchers who say that they've worked on recovered alien craft or something, like they say that they're only given a specific task to work on. They're not told any context about it. And so they just work on that. And then, they have just teams everywhere working on these little projects, and they all build towards something bigger. And then the secret space program stuff, I mean, that can expand out depending on who you listen to. Some people, look at government documents, declassified ones. They do FOIA requests. They do a lot of hard work looking through the paperwork. And then there's other people in the community who claim to either be part of secret space programs or people who talk to those people. And then it gets a lot crazier, because then you talk about that extraterrestrials could have been here for thousands of years. that they could have been helping or hindering humanity, that there could be bases on the moon and Mars and that sort of thing. So it's pretty crazy. And then when we get into time traveling, that seems to be a narrative that's being more popular. So when I looked at it and I try to look at it from like a rational point of view, if you could even say that, the way that technology is going, especially with quantum technologies, I have no idea how they work. I'm trying to study as much as I can, but I keep getting lost. But then just the thought of entanglement and faster than light communications, and the way that's, if you apply this technology or different technologies like warp drives to actual craft as a means of propulsion, there seems to be a space-time bending element to it. But as far as actual time travel goes, I don't know how it works. I've heard a lot of interesting theories, especially a really weird one about the grandfather clause and the butterfly effect. Are you familiar with those?
No, I haven't. Enlighten me.
So I was listening to one of these influencers on UFOs a couple weeks ago, and what they were saying is that, okay, so the grandfather paradox is if someone from now, present, could go into the past and kill their grandfather, thus they wouldn't be born, wouldn't that create a paradox for the future? And what would happen and then the butterfly effect is that, if one little tiny change, one little action happens, like a butterfly flapping its wings, it can create a tsunami on the other side of the world or something. So like little things add up over time.
Mm-hmm.
But what they were saying with this butterfly effect and this grandfather paradox was that they claimed that somebody actually tried it. And, this is stuff, it's stuff, I'm not completely believing in it, but it's just an interesting thing to hear about. And they said that this person did that, went in the past, killed their father, and then came back to the timeline that they were in the future. But then like a day later, they were hit by a bus or something. So the idea there is that nature is intelligent somehow, or timelines aren't fixed, but time is a part of space as well. So that when something happens, nature kind of fixes itself, balances itself out the way it should be. I don't know how it works, but it was a really interesting thing to hear.
Yeah, I know about the butterfly effect, but the grandfather paradox, I've never really thought about that. I think of all the explanations here, for me, like if I was to put my money on it, I mean, like the time travel ones are possible, but I kind of feel like I know the government's doing sneaky stuff. My money's on the black budget secret space programs, and also like I'm a strong believer of do you know like Occam's razor? It's supposedly like a principle that like the simplest solution is often the correct one. So for me, like I'm almost always like gravitating towards like the I don't want to say the simplest, but like the clearest or most basic answer. And I have no doubt that the government is doing like shady stuff without us knowing about it and in the shadows.
It's a subject that so nobody claims to know about. No government claims to have the technology, and anyone else coming forward saying they're an insider. Well, I haven't personally seen documentation on, the actual existence of, the extraterrestrials, or, so it's, they just say that there's some unknown stuff. And so for me, journalistically speaking, when I'm writing, what I look for, what I consider is that, okay, if the Pentagon says UFOs, UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena is real. The Navy said it was real. I think the Japanese government just started getting more into inquiries about it. The Senate is getting into inquiries about it. In the fiscal year 2021 budget for, oh man, I forgot what it was called, but they want updates on UFO reports and all that. So they're real. They're saying they're real, but nobody's admitting to having the technology. So that's to me, all right, it's there. These things are real, but no one's admitting where they come from. So it's
still a big mystery.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So that's why it's like, more rationally, if I just think about, what's going on, governments are shady, sneaky, secretive. So yeah, of course. But at the same time, it doesn't rule out the possibility of being out of this world. So
No.
it just, when I'm reporting on it, I try to, like, what are the actual facts, of the matter, that Air Force, Navy pilots are seeing these things. They're being reported. The government is really serious about them because the government sees it more as a threat, or they could be a potential threat. And so, there's like, maybe they come from China or Russia or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's just trying to work through it logically, but there are so many tangents to go off of, and the community is so divided on different things that it's hard to, well, you can't pin anything down without definitive proof.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate that it's a topic which is kind of like esoteric in a way, and also kind of very mysterious and elusive. And from working with you, I know that you're a very dedicated journalist, and you take a fantastic kind of approach to your journalistic endeavors. So taking that kind of approach to a topic which is so mysterious, it's a complicated job, but I can see that you're passionate about it in your writing.
And it's also, thanks. It's also, it's just like what you can do with this technology. Like, if it is, so like trying to work through it logically, if it is something, if it is human, if it is from, our own government or maybe corporations or a combination, or I don't know, then this type of technology, I mean, it would revolutionize. What else could you do with it? I mean, could this end wars, poverty, or at least improve transportation?
Yeah.
If they can go so fast, if they could bend space time and stuff like that, if they could teleport, we can like go anywhere, in a second.
Yeah.
That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be something that I'd be on board with. But I was going to move on to another point, which I know that you're super fascinated by. Moving away from UFOs slightly, is ancient civilizations such as those found in Egypt, South America, and Central America. And I know you like them because of the incredible structures associated with these civilizations, like the pyramids, for example. I'd be interested to know or to hear your thoughts regarding how these structures were created, in your opinion.
Very good question. Well, first of all, when it comes to the ones in Egypt, I don't think anybody can say for sure how they were built. Those ones are the more older ones than in Mesoamerica, Central America, in the New World, the so-called New World. But the ones in Egypt, first of all, I don't believe they were tombs at all. The more likely scenario to me is that the pyramids were kind of machines in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were placed along a grid on the earth that is where there were some sorts of nodes of energy. I don't know how it works or what kind of energy that is, like the Earth's natural energy or something like that. But there was an author, Christopher Dunn, who came up with the Giza power plant theory. And he theorized that the pyramids were actually, if you look at the shafts and how there's aquifers of water below them, he said there's a mixing. I don't want to misquote him, but I think it was where they mix hydrogen in these things in order to create some type of vibrational electricity thing. That's one theory. And the whole idea was about raising consciousness. Another theory, which I like and it's more esoteric, more kind of spiritual in nature, is from Egyptian wisdom keeper Abdul Hakim Awan. I think his name was. I think he passed away a couple years ago, but his son is doing great work in Egypt. And the pyramids were, well, each of them are different sizes. And there's also step pyramids, bent pyramids, all different kinds of shapes of them. And what they are actually tuned. So they heal through some type of acoustic resonance. So I don't know if you ever heard of binaural beats or anything like that, is when you have you have some headphones on and there's a frequency in one ear on one side and a different one on the other side, and your brain goes through some kind of entrainment, so it tries to balance out those two different frequencies, and it causes a change in consciousness. So for me, for the uses of the pyramids, that's one possibility. Is it something to heal? So if like you had an illness, you'd go into a certain pyramid and you lay down in the sarcophagi, what they call the sarcophagus, which I don't think it was for dead people at all. I think it was healing chambers. I think is for healing. But then also, in Egypt, you had all these temples around the pyramids as well. And I think it was a part of some type of initiation into the mysteries. And it was about learning about the processes, the cycles of life and death and rebirth. And then you go through the temples, you go through the pyramid and have this awakening in consciousness, so to speak. But going back to your original question, because I never did answer it, how they were built, I don't know. But there was also another really interesting thing that came from this series of books called The Law of One. The Law of One books it's psychic channeling, basically. So some people in the 1980s were doing psychic channeling, and they claimed to have come across this entity that was speaking to them. They recorded everything. So the person, this medium, she was laying there, and then she would go into a trance or whatever, just some deep meditation, or everyone had the good vibes going on, and then all of a sudden be contacted by this being. And this being called itself Ra. Okay. And so Ra, that's a very Egyptian thing. But Ra claimed that, well, first of all, Ra says that it is a social memory complex, which means from the planet Venus from 2 billion years ago. So Ra claims that 2 billion years ago, I think it was 2 billion years ago, that the entire population of Venus had reached a point where everyone was connected spiritually and in harmony, and then ascended to some other level of consciousness and became a social memory complex known as Ra. And so when Ra speaks, it's coming from like the entire collective consciousness of Venus. And Ra said about the pyramids in Egypt that it was manifested in another dimension, another density. So it was built by thought, because in other dimensions, other densities, thoughts become real. And then they manifested it here that way in what they call the third density, which is our everyday reality. That's what came through that. I don't necessarily believe it. I take all this stuff with ancient civilizations, with UFOs. I read everything. And since none of it can be proven, it's like, all right, well, that's interesting. I'll consider it.
Yeah.
But I don't make any I don't base my life around it. I don't make any decisions based on it. I'm aware of that.
I think that's the best approach to take, because there's so much out there as well. I think if you were to consume all of it with the belief that it's all real, you just like fry your brain.
Right. But the thing is with the Egyptian ones as well, though, is that the Egyptian civilization, I don't think that the pyramids or even going back to the Sphinx, because I think that's even way older. That's what Dr. Robert Schoch, author John Anthony West wrote about. Graham Hancock wrote about it as well, that the weathering on the Sphinx is not from all wind and sand erosion, but water erosion from heavy rains. And there hasn't been any heavy rains on the Giza plateau since, well, thousands of years before the Egyptologists say it was there. So the weird thing about Egypt is that it's the oldest stuff is the most advanced. It's the most developed. Everything else in Egypt that followed is a degradation from what it originally started. It was a legacy to begin with. So that means the whole ancient alien crowd will say it was aliens. But then there's others like the researcher and author Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock, who believes in a lost civilization that was on Earth before, it could be before the flood or way back in antiquity. And this could have to do with things of Atlantis and all that, but there was an advanced civilization, so could be human. It's kind of like the UFO thing. Is it human or is it ET? I don't know. But both explanations are fascinating to me.
Yeah. And I've never been to the pyramids. Have you been to any of these ancient civilizations or seen any of these structures in real life?
No. No, I've only been to, where have I been? I've been to Machu Picchu, but that's definitely not on the scale.
Yeah. I haven't either. I mean, the only ones I've been to are those in Mexico and Guatemala. I've been to I think it's Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza. And I got to say, going back to the design that we mentioned earlier, one of the things that really surprised me, which I really liked about it, is that if you clap near Chichen Itza, you can hear the echo. And it's so bizarre because usually when you hear an echo, you're in somewhere, like you're in a room or a hallway, or you're inside. But to be outside, like almost in a field, and then just to clap, and then you can hear like an echo as a result of like the structure. I think
Oh,
it was just one of the
yeah.
weirdest experiences. And I remember watching a TV show which I love, called Idiot Abroad, which is from the UK. And this guy Carl Pilkington, he's not impressed by anything, and he's very grumpy. But he did it, and he clapped, and he was like really taken aback by it. It's mind blowing. That for me is like insane.
I love that show. Yeah, it's a good one. And
Yeah.
Pilkington, yeah, he's a great subject to watch. And no, that just made me remember. Thanks about the clapping, because I mentioned that I haven't been to any place really ancient. I mentioned Machu Picchu, but there are tons of places. Which I actually think Machu Picchu. When I was there, I saw the stone, the construction of it, and to me, it looked like that Machu Picchu was built at different times. I mean, there was construction going on way back when, and then more modern stuff. And that's another thing going on in Peru as well. And I interviewed for the Sociable quite a while back. I interviewed Brian Forster. He was on Ancient Aliens, and he's one of the, as far as research into ancient cultures in Peru, I think he's the most knowledgeable gringo out there. But just going down the streets of Cusco, or going up to Sacsayhuaman, the huge megaliths there, and how they cut those stones and how they fit them together, that's, to me, I don't think that's Inca at all. I think that's pre-Inca. That's a civilization of its own that nobody knows what it is for sure. And when you mentioned again, going back to the clapping thing, I went to the Coricancha in Cusco, and there's other sites as well where they have these. It looks like they're windows, but there's nothing in them. I mean, they're stone. You can't see through them. It's just like a window. It's a cutout.
Yeah.
And and there's different acoustics that go on there as well. So I think, vibration, spin, frequency, I think those are some of the building blocks of the universe. And I think that it does have an effect on consciousness, on DNA, even in matter. So the acoustic part of it is something really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a awesome aspect of the design. And I would love to jump right back into UFOs real quick just before we end the show. You focus on a lot on government research and activity. What are your beliefs regarding government research into alien life, and how much do you think they're keeping from us? And then again, what do you think it would take for governments to release this info?
Okay, so disclosure is a major topic in the UFO community. So there are those that believe that the government, or at least faction of the government, when you look at it, if you talk about the government as in, like, use the U.S. government, for example, if you just think about it as Congress, politicians and things like that, they're clueless. So it's like, who in the government would actually know? And if it's all off the books, are they actually, they're kind of running wild, doing their own thing. So reining that in would be difficult. But I'm sorry, what was the initial question again?
Yeah, sure. So the initial question is like, what are your beliefs regarding government's research into alien life? Like, how much do you think they're keeping from us? Like, what do you think they know? Like, obviously, we've mentioned before, early in the show, you said about there's people that have mentioned that they've worked on alien crash sites, and maybe people are doing specific jobs, but they're all kind of like divided. So they're not like holistically working on a project together. Those are obviously some beliefs or possibilities that you mentioned. I'd love to hear, like, to what extent you think that, say, for example, what's going on at Area 51, or if there's some other kind of base, or maybe if like Area 51 is just a distraction or something like that.
Yeah, that's the most popular one. There's Area 51, and then there's Area S4 close by. But then there's also deep underground military bases, DUM as an acronym. And I think those are all over the world. So I think there's governments. That's another thing too. So I think it's like a whole governments around the world. It's not just one government. I think they all have some knowledge. I think some of them, if there are alien craft, I think they've been trying to reverse engineer that. Maybe the craft wasn't even alien at all. Maybe it was us from the future, but at any rate, somebody knows. If it's human, somebody knows. If it's alien, I think there would have been contact as well, and so somebody knows. The problem is, how do you bring this out to the population? Because that could upend belief systems. That questions some people's faiths. It could cause massive unrest. If there were, I don't know, in 2020, this year's surprise. What I see is a lot of drip disclosure going on. So, like, they announced, UFOs are real, like that was huge. Like they're actually admitting that they don't know what they are, or they're saying they don't know what they are. They're not admitting to knowing it, what it is. So the narratives then is, if you're a government or multiple governments or some secret cabal trying to control the world and pull the strings that way, how do you disclose that information to the people? If you only give them little snippets at a time, and also through what they call, pre-programming through Hollywood and things like that. So like desensitizing people or getting them used to the idea that there are aliens. And then so when that day comes, if they're going to announce, oh yeah, aliens are here, and oh, they're really benevolent, but it could be just a group of people saying that to further their own agendas. So they could say like, oh yeah, so this person or this alien here, this one comes from this area, this part of Zeta Reticuli or Orion or something like that, and they're super nice, and they're gonna look over us now. They're gonna rule us, but really it's gonna be the people behind them. They're gonna set up someone as the savior of humankind, but no, it's really a psyop to gain more control, push for a world government or something like that. So there's people who just want, give us everything right now. Just give us the technology, give us the knowledge, give us our history back, stop lying, tell us the truth. Who are we? Where do we come from? Do we have, are there others? Do we have cousins out there? Or maybe there's a whole other thing about breakaway civilizations as well. Like that a long time ago that some humans broke away to Mars or something like that. Or even under in deep underground caverns in the earth as well. They evolved in a different way under there, so they appear alien, but they're actually a form of human as well. So, man, it just goes into so many different areas. But if it's the government, I don't know. I think the government knows a lot. But if the trouble is pinning down what is the government.
Yeah.
It's not the legislators. It's not. Maybe it's a little bit of military involvement. Maybe it's a little bit of the intelligence community. But I think there's something else, another element to it, another agency or corporation or group or something that's completely secretive that I just don't know about.
I think you're completely right. I agree with you entirely. And it's kind of one of those things which I try not to think about too much because it's frustrating, probably not ever knowing the whole truth. I'll leave this to you and your research. And now this is usually the point where I direct the listeners to maybe a website or a page or social media of the guest. However, obviously, we're all under the Sociable. So I suppose the best thing to do is, do you have any articles specifically which you produced or which other people have produced, which you'd like to direct listeners to if they're interested in learning more about this subject?
Oh, man. I mean, I'll try to make it quick. I mean, there's so many different researchers out there. They're the ones I like, Vault and The Drive, for looking at, for websites that look at kind of like documentation. These people do really hard work. They sift, they spend hours, they go through FOIA requests. They have to wait years to get documents back. So they do great work. There's another whole other side that's also divided, and the people who claim to be part of the secret space programs. I don't want to mention who they are. I mean, there's just so much animosity between camps that, if you want to look it up, just look up secret space programs and stuff. But as for the Sociable, yeah, the article you mentioned, the last one I just did on the theories on the origins of UFO technology. And in that article, I also linked to a bunch of other articles I've written on the subject, like the theoretical space bending time, the space-time bending tech of UFOs. And when the Pentagon confirmed the existence of UFOs, it meant that there's stuff out there that nobody admits happening. So I think I've linked all of those in the last article as well. So yeah, just check it out, or just go to Sociable and search for UFO.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much for today.
Hey, my pleasure, Sam.
Once again, thank you to our sponsor, Publicize. Visit their website if you want to find out more about their PR for growth packages, their free resources, or even schedule a call. And for a limited time only, exclusive to Brains Bite Back listeners, you can receive an SEO assessment as part of your package for any tier of service at no extra charge with this special promotion. To find out more, visit publicize.co/BBB. That is it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. And as ever, you can find all of our episodes and more, and Tim's articles for that matter, at sociable.co. You can also follow our podcast on any of your favorite podcasting platforms, and after a brief break, we are back on YouTube, so you can subscribe to us there. Just search Brains Bite Back and you will find us. And don't forget to leave comments on the videos, reviews on our podcasting platforms, and reach out to us on Twitter because we want to hear from you and we want to hear what you think of the show. So be sociable. Thanks, and we look forward to you joining us again soon.